Good afternoon. My name is Jim, and I would like to share with you a testimony that I gave this morning at my local church. It was a men's breakfast, and I was the guest speaker, and this was my message that I shared with the men at the church, and I hope this would be also an encouragement to you. Thank you for watching.
Well, good morning. I'm very excited to share, but also very nervous. So I did share last year, and I'm going to elaborate a little bit more. But I'm going to share my testimony, and then something that's happened to me over the years. And then I'm going to conclude it with a call to action for all you men. So my life when I was a child was sort of tragic for me anyways. I came from a broken family. I didn't see really any love in my home. My parents, I never saw them hold hands. I never saw them kiss. I never saw them do any of that stuff. What I did see is I saw my dad sitting on the front porch, smoking a cigarette, and my mom walked out with a carton of eggs, and one by one broke them over his head. And I'm not really sure what brought that on, but that was kind of tragic for me, like to witness that. I also saw my mother come out the front door with a shotgun and told my dad not to step on the property, or she was going to finish him off right there. So basically, my mom and dad, they did this thing back and forth, and they got divorced. My dad said to me, he said, after the court hearing, he says, "You're going to move in with me." I said, "Great, that's what I want to do." So that didn't happen. And so basically my dad had visitation every weekend, every other weekend, whatever it was. And so I'd go visit him, and he'd always talk about my mother this, my mother that, how things, what's happening. And then my mother would turn around and do the exact same when I got home about my dad. So my dad said to me one day, he says, "Why don't we write a letter to the Children's Aid and tell them how it is at home, because then you can come live with me." I thought, that's a great idea. So I wrote a letter, gave it to my dad, he mailed it. Then I wrote another letter, he took care of it. I wrote a third letter, and he took care of that as well. Then I came home from school one day, and the social services were sitting out in front of my house. And I went up, and there's the 3 letters sitting on the table in front of my mother. And she said to me, "You're done. You get out, never come back. I'm cutting you out of the will." So it was a bit of a bittersweet moment for me, because then I was able to go live with my dad. So my dad picked me up, and instead of going back to Sarnia, we were going to London. I didn't know why, but he was taking me to social services in London to drop me off. We got inside, and she said, "Why are you dropping him off for?" He said, "Well, because I'm getting married soon, and I don't have room for him." "Well, what about his mother?" He says, "Oh, she said she doesn't want him. She told him to get out and not to come back." So that's how that story went. Now, at the time, I'm not really sure what transpired after that, because I find that most of my childhood is almost like I'm seeing it from a distance. I've got so many things that have happened that I've basically blocked out. Probably for the first 12 years, I barely remember anything of my childhood except for just the tragedy, the things that happened. So I'm not immune to child abuse. I'm not immune to sexual abuse. I'm not immune to verbal abuse. I've been through all of that stuff. And basically, I got a golden ticket. I got a ticket that says that now I can go into my adulthood. I can be bitter. I can be mean. I can be vengeful. I can talk down on people. I had the golden ticket. But what happened was my grandma, who's a really good influence on me, basically led me to the Lord. And I had to get rid of all that bitterness. My mother, when she was in the hospital, dying, I went up and I fed her. And I had to get rid of all the bitterness. And so that was my childhood. And like I say, most of my childhood is just a blur. And it's funny now when I look around, if I see something or I smell something or somebody says something, it reminds me of part of my childhood. And a lot of times those are good memories. I'll smell something, I'll say, yeah, I forgot all about that. I just never ever remember that. So my childhood was basically a blur. My wife also came from a broken family. Her family was much more tame than what mine was. The only big thing with her is she had an adopted sister that tied her up to a chair and tried to light the chair on fire. But other than that, she came from a broken family. And so the two of us both coming from a broken family, it's not good for our children because they lose that opportunity right off the bat because it's just, statistics say it's just not as good for them. So anyways, so we got through that and I became an adult and started serving the Lord and putting all that stuff behind me. And it's not that I don't remember it. It's just that I don't hold the bitterness about it anymore. It's just there. Helps me to be sensitive to other people who are maybe having hard times. But it's not something I hold on to that I'm bitter about. So, moving forward, 38 years ago, I was out one evening. My wife and my children had all gone 2 hours away for a nephew's birthday party. This was on the Friday night. They left on the Friday morning, and I was supposed to go up and pick them up on the Sunday. So on the Friday night, I was out in my car. I had a 1972 Toyota Corolla, and I was going down this gravel road, and it was, near dusk. The stones were hitting the bottom of the car, and the dust was up, and there was a cornfield right beside me. And from here to that wall away from me, I heard this noise. And I looked over to my right, and right there was a train screaming past me. Well, when I saw him, I was like 15 feet from the railroad tracks. I have no idea how fast it was going, but I know I was doing, 80 kilometers an hour or whatever. Well, that thing, I didn't even have a chance to touch the brake pedal. That's how close it was to me. A lot of times when people are in a situation, especially a life-threatening situation, first thing that comes out of their mouth is profanity. They just, what's in their heart comes out of their mouth. When I saw that train, I saw it there, and then I didn't see it anymore because it was gone. What I said was, "Oh Lord." That was all I had time to say. Didn't have time to touch the brake pedal. Didn't have time to think of where I'm going to go from here. It was just, "Oh Lord." That thing took me 500 feet down the railroad tracks. It was a double set of tracks, and that car just kept spinning all the way down the railroad tracks for 500 feet. Well, when it stopped, I was out cold. I don't actually remember even hitting the train, but I know I did. My car certainly knew it did too. So I was 500 feet down the tracks. When I came to, the ambulance was there, the police were there, CN police were there, and the train conductor who stopped the train way down the tracks ran all the way back. And when I opened up my eyes, I was sitting in the passenger seat. I didn't have my seatbelt on, and what happened was the steering wheel got drove right into the driver's seat. So it's a good thing I didn't have my seatbelt on. Back then, seatbelts wasn't really that important, but anyways. So I looked up, the passenger seat was broken. I was laying down, I looked up and there was blood all over the ceiling. And so I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't feel my legs. And the paramedic came over to me, and they were trying to get me out of the car. The wheels were gone, the engine was gone, the transmission was gone, the whole car was just squished up into a cube. I was in the passenger seat laying there, and I couldn't feel my legs. I said to him, I says, are my legs still, do I have legs? What's going on? I'm laying there and there's blood everywhere. He says, oh yeah, your legs are fine. And when they sat me up, the firewall came in and just pushed both legs. And I'd been laying there probably for 20 minutes to half an hour out cold. And so I just lost the feelings in my leg. And I got a little tiny nick on my leg about this long. And the blood all over the ceiling. My head hit the mirror. And there was just little pieces of glass in my head. No stitches, just little pieces of glass. And I bleed a lot. So, they wiped my head off and pulled the glass and I was done. So they delivered me to the hospital. They called my wife. The doctor, a friend of ours, he was a Christian man. He called my wife. He says, oh, Virginia, your husband's been in a motor vehicle accident. She was all frantic and all worried and everything. He says, no, it's okay. He's fine. Everything's fine. Then she said, well, what about the people in the other vehicle? So as soon as he told her it was a train, she lost it. So anyways, they put me in the hospital, watched me overnight, and the next day I walked home. I was fine, totally fine. Now, one thing that most people don't know is I was a young guy back then, and my insurance had run out on my car, and so down the road I got a bill from Via Rail for $25,000. Back in 38 years from now, 38 years ago, I got a bill from Via Rail for $25,000. I thought, oh my goodness. But it was a struggle, but I paid it. So anyways, we went to a Wednesday night Bible study. And at this Bible study, this one lady said, when we were praying, after we got done praying, she said, I had a feeling while we were praying, and I had a prophetic message for you. And I said, so what's that? She says, God told me that he spared your life, but he has a great plan for you. And I thought, oh, wow, this is great, a great plan. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to have a big business. I'm going to, wonder what this big plan is. So anyways, I've been waiting for this big plan to come together. And didn't come together. And I prayed about it. And I said, Lord, what is this big purpose you got for me? You spared me. Why did you spare me? And I prayed about it many times. No answers. So, last summer, and this is a call to action to you guys, last summer, I went on a men's retreat. And it was in September. And it was actually the highlight of my year. I went there and I only had 3 things I wanted out of that weekend. I wanted to meet other men, pray with other men, fellowship with other men. That was the one thing I wanted. The second thing I wanted was I wanted that sweet, sweet presence of spending time with God. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. That sweet presence where you just know without a doubt that God is right with you. That's what I wanted. And the third thing I wanted lots of food. And they had lots of food, I'll tell you. They had snacking at 10:30 at night with hamburgers and nachos. And I said to one lady behind the counter, I says, my wife does not let me eat like this at home. He says, none of these guys let their wives let them eat like this at home. So anyway, I went and I was expecting from God. And the thing is, we can pray at home. We can pray when we're driving. We can pray when we're sitting on the toilet. Whatever you're doing, we can pray. We can pray with the kids running around. But there's just something about being with a bunch of men, being in an area where God is like ministering to us. There's just something about that. And I thought, this is the opportunity. God, what is this great plan you've got for me? For 38 years I'm waiting, and what is this great plan? So, Saturday afternoon at the men's retreat, I went into the church. I went to the front. There was nobody around. All the lights were turned off, and I laid on the floor. And I prayed to God. And I prayed, and I prayed. And I worshiped with him. And I just spent time with him, waiting for the answer. Nothing. Okay, so what happened was Saturday evening, we had our speaker again. And the premise of the whole weekend was, it was about Nehemiah. Nehemiah went before the king. He was sad. And you can't go before the king when you're sad, because he can put you to death. You need to be in a good mood when you go before the king. Anyways, he went before the king and he was sad. And the king said, what's up, Nehemiah? He says, well, the walls in Jerusalem have been taken down, and my people are defenseless. And I need to go and I need to help build up the walls. So the king gave him his blessing, gave him escorts, and gave him wood, material to build. So the whole premise of the weekend was building up people, building up relationships, that sort of thing. So I went back to my room, and that evening I went to bed, and I was laying there, and all of a sudden, it's like a spark. Like I just felt so overwhelmed with the presence of God. And He gave me my answer right there. And not to brag. I'm not bragging by any means. I'm just saying God has intervened. I sat up and I thought to myself, I've been married for 45 years to the same person. And she's my best friend. And we get along great. And I've got 4 children. And they're all serving the Lord. And I got 4 daughter-in-laws. And they're all serving the Lord. And I've got 10 grandchildren. All of whom were born over 9 months after they were married. I've always financially supported my church. I've always stood behind my pastors. I've always stood behind the deacon board who've been nominated for that church. Right then, it came to me that maybe I was already there. What I've been praying for 30 years. Maybe this is what God had for me. To be a pillar for my family. To be a positive influence on my children. I've made a lot of mistakes. Lots of mistakes. But I believe that all these years, what I prayed for, it was there. And so what I'm saying is, yeah, you can pray at home, that's great. You can pray in your car by yourself, whatever. But sometimes there's just something great about getting together with a bunch of godly men and just sharing and praying and uplifting each other. And that's what the men's ministry did for me. Like I say, it was the highlight of my year. And in September, it doesn't matter unless I'm dead. I'm going to go to the men's ministry. So I'd just like to encourage every one of you that where you are right now, maybe God wants you to blossom in that spot. He wants you to be a positive influence on your family, on your children. He doesn't want you to dominate your wife. He wants you to be the head of your house and to love her and be one with her and teach your children. So many people just let their children run. Take them to church. Spend time with them. Teach them God's Word. Anyways, that's my message. That's where I'm at. And I'm so excited about my faith. And I'm just on fire for God.